It was a radiant spring afternoon in the quiet suburb of Maplewood, where streets were lined with blossoming cherry trees, and the laughter of children filled the air. The scent of fresh grass mingled with the faint aroma of blooming flowers, creating the perfect backdrop for a seemingly ordinary day. Among the residents strolling through the neighborhood was 3-year-old Emma Thompson, a little girl with golden curls bouncing over her shoulders and eyes wide with curiosity. She wore her favorite yellow dress, patterned with tiny daisies, and carried a small stuffed rabbit she never went anywhere without. Emma's parents, Laura and Michael Thompson, were just a few steps behind, enjoying the warmth of the afternoon. They had come out for a simple walk, intending to let Emma explore the yard near their house. But as always with toddlers, curiosity had other plans. Emma had already discovered a cluster of dandelions along the path and was busy plucking them one by one, blowing on them and giggling as the seeds floated into the gentle breeze. Her small hands, covered in dirt and pollen, reflected the freedom of childhood, a freedom her parents cherished but also watched carefully. Meanwhile, on the other side of the park, Officer Daniel Harris was conducting a routine patrol with his canine partner, Rex. A massive German shepherd with jet-black fur and eyes sharp with intelligence, was no ordinary dog. Trained for years in search and rescue, threat detection, and patrol work, he was a symbol of both authority and vigilance. Today, Rex's ears twitched with focus as they moved through the park. The dog's muscular frame and commanding presence often intimidated even the bravest adults. Yet Daniel trusted him implicitly, knowing the dog's instincts could save lives in seconds. As fate would have it, Emma's wanderings led her toward the very path Officer Harris and Rex were patrolling. She paused, captivated by the sight of the large dog, who seemed so different from her tiny stuffed animals at home. Her parents, a few feet behind, began to notice her movement and called out gently, "Emma, stay close." But the girl, fearless and enchanted, barely registered the warning. When Rex caught sight of Emma, his instincts kicked in. A stranger tiny and unthreatening was approaching. Normally, he would maintain a professional distance, observing with caution. But as Emma stepped closer, something remarkable happened. Instead of barking or showing defensive posture, Rex tilted his head slightly, his ears perking up in curiosity. The dog's training told him to be alert, but his instincts seemed to register Emma as different. She was calm, unafraid, and moving slowly, as if she were aware of his power, yet unthreatened. Emma giggled and reached out a small hand toward Rex, her fingers trembling with excitement. "Hi, doggy," she said, her voice sweet and unguarded. Officer Harris froze, unsure of what Rex might do. It was rare for a K9 to react so calmly to an unfamiliar child. The dog took a slow step forward, sniffing the girl's hand gently. Emma's eyes widened with delight, and she patted Rex's head softly. The large dog, trained for aggression when necessary, responded with surprising gentleness, nudging her hand with his nose as if acknowledging a newfound friend. This scene drew the attention of a few neighbors strolling through the park. They paused, whispering among themselves in disbelief. One elderly woman, Mrs. Caldwell, muttered, "I've seen that dog chase down criminals, and now he's letting a toddler pet him? Unbelievable." A man walking his own dog nodded, smiling at the unexpected display of trust. It was a moment of pure innocence meeting disciplined instinct, a rare occurrence that no one present would forget. Lavra and Michael hurried toward Emma, their hearts racing. Relief washed over them as they saw their daughter safe, laughing, and completely unharmed. "Emma, sweetheart, come here," Lavra called gently, but there was no anger in her voice, just awe. Michael whispered to Daniel, "I can't believe he's letting her do that." Officer Harris smiled cautiously, still keeping a watchful eye on Rex, whose tail wagged slowly, a sign of calm approval rather than excitement. "What's going on here?" a neighbor asked, approaching cautiously. Daniel explained, "This is Rex. He's trained for police work, but he has a calm side too. Looks like he likes her." Emma, oblivious to the discussion, hugged her stuffed rabbit and giggled again, patting Rex's massive head. Rex leaned slightly, allowing the little girl to make contact without a hint of aggression. The park seemed to hold its breath. Children's laughter from the playground faded into the background, replaced by the awe-inspiring stillness of a unique encounter. Emma's bravery and the dog's unexpected gentleness created a scene that felt almost magical, like a fleeting alignment of innocence and discipline. The air carried an unspoken understanding. Sometimes, the smallest gestures can bridge worlds that normally remain apart. Neighbors quickly pulled out their phones, snapping pictures and recording short videos. "This is going to go viral," someone whispered. And indeed, the footage would later travel far beyond Maplewood, touching hearts across the nation. But at this moment, no one cared about fame. All that mattered was the pure, unadulterated connection between a tiny girl and a highly trained police dog. Eventually, Emma's parents scooped her up, careful not to startle Rex. "Thank you, Officer Harris," Lavra said softly. Daniel nodded, watching as his canine's focus shifted back to him. "She's a special little girl," he replied. "And Rex, well, he's special too." The two pairs, human and dog, had recognized something extraordinary in each other, an intuitive understanding that transcended words and rules. As they walked away, Emma waved goodbye to Rex, who sat patiently, tail wagging once, as if waving back. The park returned to its normal rhythm, the cherry trees swaying in the breeze, children laughing, and adults resuming their casual strolls. Yet for those who had witnessed the moment, it would linger in memory the day a fearless little girl met a police dog and formed a bond that seemed impossible, a tiny spark of wonder in an ordinary afternoon. And so, what began as a simple walk in the park ended as a story that would soon captivate an entire community, and, eventually, the nation. The innocence of a 3-year-old and the restraint of a highly trained canine had created a moment both unassuming and extraordinary, a reminder that sometimes courage comes in the smallest packages, and trust can be found in the most unexpected places. By the following morning, the story of Emma and Rex had begun to ripple quietly through Maplewood. Word of mouth traveled faster than anyone anticipated. Mrs. Caldwell, the elderly neighbor who had witnessed the encounter firsthand, shared the tale with her weekly bridge club, emphasizing the unusual calmness of the police dog and the fearlessness of the little girl. Her friends leaned forward, murmuring in amazement. "I've never seen a canine so gentle with a child," one said. "It's like they understood each other," another added. The group spent the better part of the afternoon discussing the event, their voices filled with awe and wonder. At the local bakery, the story took on a life of its own. Bakers and baristas, typically preoccupied with morning coffee and croissant orders, found themselves repeating the tale to one another between tasks. "The 3-year-old and that police dog," one barista said, shaking her head. "It's incredible. I've seen Rex on patrol. That dog doesn't let anyone near him." Customers who overheard the conversation nodded vigorously, sharing their own astonishment. Some suggested Emma must have a special gift, while others simply called it a magical moment that reminded them of the innocence of childhood. Meanwhile, Officer Daniel Harris found himself fielding calls from colleagues and supervisors alike. Even veteran officers marveled at the rare scene, reviewing their own experiences with K-9 units. "I've trained dogs for years, Daniel," one officer said over the phone. "I've never seen one respond so calmly to a stranger, especially a toddler." "That's remarkable." Daniel explained that while Rex was highly disciplined, his behavior that afternoon was beyond training. "It's instinct," Daniel said thoughtfully, glancing down at Rex, who lay obediently at his feet. Somehow, he recognized she wasn't a threat. It was mutual trust. The Thompsons themselves were still processing the experience. Lavra, Emma's mother, reflected on how quickly the encounter had escalated from curiosity to fascination. "I was terrified when she wandered toward the park," she admitted. "But watching her interact with Rex, it was incredible. He was gentle, and she was fearless. It felt like they were speaking without words." Michael nodded in agreement, recalling how Emma had instinctively patted the dog on the head as though she had known him forever. "There was something extraordinary in that moment," he said. "Something that can't be taught or planned." Social media soon amplified the story. Someone in the neighborhood had uploaded a short video clip of Emma laughing as Rex sniffed her hand. Within hours, the footage went viral. Comments poured in from around the country, ranging from awe to admiration. Many viewers were struck by the innocence of a child, juxtaposed against the trained precision of a canine officer. "This is pure magic," one comment read. "A moment where innocence and instinct meet." Others shared photos of their own children with pets, creating a flood of content inspired by Emma and Rex's brief but profound connection. Local news stations quickly caught wind of the viral clip. Reporters arrived in Maplewood, cameras and microphones in tow, hoping to capture both the story and the human reactions behind it. When they spoke to Laura and Michael, the parents were at first hesitant. They did not seek fame, but the media attention was respectful, emphasizing the heartwarming nature of the story rather than sensationalizing it. "We just want people to see the bond," Laura said softly, cradling Emma, who was more interested in waving at a passing dog than answering questions. "It's about trust, bravery, and kindness, not headlines." Officer Harris was interviewed alongside Rex, who sat obediently beside him, ears alert but relaxed. Harris explained the dog's extensive training in search and rescue, threat assessment, and crowd control. Yet, he emphasized that Rex's behavior around Emma was exceptional. "He's trained to detect danger, but today he recognized something else," Harris said, smiling down at the dog. "There's a connection between children and animals that's difficult to explain." Today, Emma and Rex understood each other in a way only they could. The clip aired on local television, accompanied by footage of the park and cherry blossoms swaying in the wind, giving the story a cinematic, almost storybook quality. Neighbors, too, became minor celebrities in their own right. Mrs. Caldwell was interviewed about witnessing the encounter, her hands trembling slightly with excitement. "It was extraordinary," she said. "That little girl? She had no fear. And Rex, he was just perfect. It was like watching a story unfold in real life." Her description was heartfelt, painting a vivid picture of a quiet park transformed into a stage for an unforgettable moment. Children in the neighborhood retold the story to friends, embellishing details slightly, but always returning to the heart of the tale. A tiny girl and a massive dog meeting in mutual trust. Even within the police department, discussions about the encounter took on an unusual tone. Sergeants and rookies alike debated whether the incident was luck, instinct, or something more extraordinary. "I've seen dogs react unpredictably before," one officer said. "But Rex?" He waited, he observed, and he responded in the gentlest way possible. "That doesn't happen often." Daniel Harris, proud but humble, merely nodded. He knew the dog's training had prepared him for countless scenarios. Yet Emma's presence had elicited a unique behavior that was impossible to replicate or predict. It was a testament to the unpredictability of life and the extraordinary nature of small, innocent gestures. Meanwhile, Emma herself remained blissfully unaware of the attention she had sparked. She continued to explore the park during subsequent visits, occasionally waving to Rex from a distance, holding her mother's hand, and giggling at her own shadow. To her, it was a game, a delightful interaction with a large, friendly dog. She did not understand headlines, social media, or public praise. Her joy was simple, genuine, and unself-conscious. Yet it was precisely this innocence that had captured the hearts of adults, reminding them of the wonder of childhood. By the end of the week, Maplewood had become subtly transformed. Conversations in cafes, supermarkets, and playgrounds often began with, "Did you hear about the little girl and the police dog?" The story had inspired a wave of positivity in the community, drawing people together over shared admiration for an encounter that was at once ordinary and extraordinary. Emma's parents, while slightly overwhelmed, embraced the attention as an opportunity to highlight kindness, courage, and the importance of safe, respectful interactions between children and animals. And so, what had started as a sunny afternoon walk in a quiet suburban park evolved into a story that captivated an entire community. The extraordinary calm of a trained canine, paired with the fearless innocence of a 3-year-old girl, sparked conversations, news coverage, and social media fascination. It was more than a moment. It was a gentle reminder that small acts of bravery, trust, and connection could ripple outward, touching lives far beyond the park, the neighborhood of Maplewood, and soon the world beyond, would remember that afternoon not for headlines, not for fame, but for the simple, unassuming magic of a girl, a dog, and a shared understanding that transcended words. The next morning, the Thompson household was buzzing with an unusual mix of excitement and apprehension. Lavra Thompson sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, watching the latest social media posts about her daughter, Emma. Dozens of shares, comments, and news links detailed the encounter with Rex, the police dog, and how Emma had fearlessly approached him in the park. While the attention warmed her heart, a gnawing unease lingered. She glanced toward the living room where Emma played with her stuffed rabbit, oblivious to the world. "Michael," she said quietly, "I love that people are inspired, but I can't shake this feeling that maybe we should have been more careful." Michael, sipping his morning coffee, nodded thoughtfully. "I know," he admitted. "I've never been so proud and so worried at the same time. She's fearless, yes, but she's still 3. What if something had gone wrong?" Their conversation was interrupted by the phone ringing. It was the local police department. Officer Daniel Harris was calling to follow up on the previous day's incident. "Good morning, Lavra." "Michael," Daniel said warmly, though his voice carried the undertone of official procedure. "I wanted to check in. Yesterday was remarkable, but we have to do our due diligence. Standard protocol requires a brief report on any interaction between children and canine units. Nothing alarming, just formalities." Lavra exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and residual guilt. "Of course, Officer Harris. Emma was safe, and Rex was calm. But we understand," she said. Daniel explained the steps involved: interviews, documenting the encounter, and ensuring Emma's safety had not been compromised. Though routine, the process added an unexpected layer of seriousness to the otherwise heartwarming story. Later that morning, Lavra and Michael met with a community social worker, who asked gentle but probing questions about Emma's supervision, daily routines, and familiarity with animals. "We just want to ensure her safety," the social worker explained kindly. "She's a brave little girl, but children this age can get into situations quickly." While the formalities unfolded, the media continued to fan the flames of public fascination. Local news stations had already aired multiple segments showing Emma laughing as Rex sniffed her hand, and social media channels were saturated with comments of admiration. Some viewers expressed concern over parental supervision, while the majority marveled at the unique bond between the toddler and the trained canine. Lavra felt a pang of anxiety as she read the comments. But she also noticed the overwhelming positivity, the admiration. the warmth, the joy inspired by her daughter's innocence. Meanwhile, at the police station, Officer Harris documented the encounter meticulously. He included photos, video evidence, and written observations of Rex's behavior. His colleagues stopped by to view the footage, many of them nodding in quiet amazement. "I've trained dogs for years," one officer said, "but I've never seen one respond so gently to a stranger, especially a child. That dog knew she was safe. There's something extraordinary in that interaction." Daniel agreed, noting that Rex's response seemed instinctive rather than trained. It was as if the dog had sensed Emma's pure intentions and mirrored them. Back at the Thompson house, Emma remained blissfully unaware of the scrutiny. She played in the yard, chasing butterflies and giggling as the sunlight danced on her hair. "Emma, come inside for breakfast," Lavra called, but the little girl ran a few steps further before stopping and turning toward her mother with a wide, radiant smile. The innocence in her eyes was what had captivated everyone, from neighbors to social media viewers, and even trained law enforcement officers. In that smile, people saw trust, joy, and courage, unbound by fear. As the day progressed, the social worker filed a brief report with the local authorities, noting Emma's safety, the parents' attentive supervision, and Rex's unusual behavior. The report concluded that no immediate concerns existed, but recommended that the story be monitored carefully, especially if media attention continued to escalate. The formalities, though mundane, contrasted sharply with the magical simplicity of the original encounter. For Emma, it had been play. For adults, it was a story rich with layers of amazement, caution, and reflection. Across town, neighbors continued to discuss the incident. Children who had been playing in the park repeated Emma's story to friends and siblings, emphasizing the thrill of seeing a massive police dog sit calmly while a tiny girl patted him. Parents watched with pride and mild apprehension, recognizing the risks of unsupervised exploration, yet marveling at the rare display of courage and trust. The story inspired small acts of kindness in the community. Some families brought treats for local police dogs, while others simply reflected on how trust and empathy could bridge gaps in the most unexpected ways. The media's coverage evolved as well. Local reporters interviewed Officer Harris at the park, asking him about Rex's training and behavior. Harris, ever professional but visibly proud, explained that Rex's calm demeanor around Emma was extraordinary, even for a highly trained canine. "Dogs can sense intent and emotion," he said. And Emma, she had nothing but warmth and curiosity. It's rare to see that kind of connection. Clips from the interview were shared widely, reinforcing the narrative of innocence meeting trained instinct, and prompting discussions about child safety, animal behavior, and the emotional intelligence of K-9 officers. Meanwhile, Emma's parents faced mixed emotions. They were proud, relieved, and slightly overwhelmed by attention. Laura reflected on how fleeting the moment had been, yet how profoundly it resonated with others. "It's amazing how one small interaction can ripple out and touch so many lives," she thought. Michael, sitting nearby with a cup of coffee, nodded. "It reminds us to pay attention to the little moments. Sometimes they mean more than we realize." The family's reflections mirrored the broader reaction in Maplewood and beyond: wonder, joy, and a renewed appreciation for the unexpected magic in everyday life. By the afternoon, the formal investigation had concluded. The authorities affirmed that Emma was safe, her parents were attentive, and Rex had behaved remarkably. No charges, no reprimands, just documentation for the record. But while the legal and procedural elements were routine, the emotional impact was profound. For the Thompsons, the encounter had already become a cherished memory. For Officer Harris, it reinforced the unpredictability and humanity inherent in his work with K-9 units. And for the neighborhood, the story had become an emblem of courage, trust, and innocence. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, Emma wandered once more to the park's edge, holding her stuffed rabbit. She waved at Rex, who remained with Officer Harris, tail wagging slowly in recognition. The little girl's fearless spirit and the dog's gentle response had created a moment that transcended ordinary life, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. By the time Emma was called inside for dinner, the park seemed almost sacred, a stage for a story that would soon reach far beyond Maplewood, capturing hearts across the nation. In that evening light, the Thompsons realized the significance of the day. It had been a simple walk, a fleeting encounter, yet it had sparked conversations, admiration, and reflection. Emma had shown courage in its purest form. Rex had demonstrated restraint and intelligence, and the world had taken notice. What began as a routine afternoon had transformed into something remarkable. A story of innocence meeting trained instinct, a tale of wonder, and a lesson in the quiet power of trust. And so, Maplewood settled into its evening rhythm, unaware that the tale of a 3-year-old girl and a police dog was about to grow even larger, capturing not just a neighborhood, but the attention of courts, communities, and the nation at large. The stage was set for lessons of empathy, bravery, and humanity to unfold in ways no one could yet imagine. By midweek, the story of Emma Thompson and Rex, the police dog, had begun to transcend Maplewood's borders. What had started as a quiet neighborhood tale now buzzed across social media platforms, shared by thousands who were captivated by the unlikely friendship. Short clips of Emma patting Rex's massive head had been uploaded by several neighbors, each capturing her fearless laughter and the dog's calm, almost protective demeanor. Viewers across the country found themselves mesmerized, commenting on the video with admiration, awe, and a touch of disbelief. At the Thompson household, the family had become acutely aware of the attention. Lavra sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea and scrolling through endless notifications. "Michael, look at this," she whispered, her finger pointing to hundreds of shares and comments. "People are saying this is the sweetest thing they've seen all year." Michael peered over her shoulder, eyes widening at the stream of praise. "It's incredible," he said. "But I hope people understand this was just a normal day for Emma. She didn't mean for all this attention." Despite their apprehension, the Thompsons had agreed to participate in a brief interview with a local news station. Cameras and microphones arrived at their doorstep, and a young reporter greeted them warmly. Emma, curious and unafraid, peeked around the living room doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The reporter knelt to Emma's level, offering a smile. "Hi there. Did you have fun meeting Rex?" she asked gently. Emma nodded vigorously, her golden curls bouncing, and replied in a soft but clear voice, "He's nice." The footage captured the innocence and fearlessness that had captured so many hearts online. Officer Daniel Harris was also interviewed, accompanied by Rex, who sat obediently at his handler's side. Harris explained Rex's extensive training years of learning search and rescue techniques, threat detection, and disciplined obedience. "Rex is an exceptional dog," Harris said, his voice measured but warm. "He has worked in situations that would challenge even the most experienced handlers. Yet with Emma, he displayed something rare: gentleness, patience, and trust. He recognized her innocence instinctively." The footage aired on the evening news, and viewers were struck not only by Rex's composure, but by the unique courage of a 3-year-old girl confronting a massive police dog with no fear. Social media response was instantaneous. Within hours, the video had thousands of shares, likes, and comments. Hashtags like #EmmaandRex and #FearlessGirl trended on multiple platforms. Families shared their own stories of children interacting with pets, while some commented on the importance of proper canine training. Animal lovers praised Rex's behavior, and parents marveled at Emma's bravery. One viewer wrote, I've never seen anything like this pure innocence and trust meeting trained instinct. Another added, "This is the reminder we all need. Children teach us how to be fearless." Local reporters returned to the park to capture the setting where the encounter had taken place. The cherry trees, now in full bloom, provided a picturesque backdrop for the story. Footage showed where Emma had wandered, the spot where Rex had first sniffed her hand, and the path her parents had followed. Interviews with neighbors who had witnessed the scene added depth to the narrative. Mrs. Caldwell, still wide-eyed with excitement, described the encounter with vivid detail. "It was extraordinary," she said. "The dog was massive, trained to protect and respond to threats, but he just watched her, calmly. And she had no fear. It was like watching magic unfold." Across the police department, Officer Harris noticed that the story had taken on a life of its own. Calls from fellow officers and community members poured in, expressing admiration for both Rex and Emma. Some officers were curious about the unusual behavior of the K9, while others marveled at the child's natural confidence. "I've trained dogs for years," one officer remarked to Harris, "but I've never seen anything like this. That dog could have reacted in 100 different ways, yet he chose gentleness. And that child, she's remarkable." Harris nodded thoughtfully, realizing the encounter was not only extraordinary, but also a lesson in the unpredictable beauty of human-animal connection. Even Emma's preschool took notice. Teachers praised her for being brave and kind, using the story as a teachable moment about empathy, respect for animals, and the power of calm confidence. Students listened intently as the tale was retold, imagining a tiny girl fearlessly interacting with a massive police dog. Art projects were inspired, with children drawing pictures of a smiling girl and a loyal dog, often including the cherry blossom trees that had framed the scene. The story was becoming a community touchstone, a reminder of how innocence and courage could inspire far beyond the park. At home, Laura and Michael found themselves reflecting on the extraordinary turn of events. They had always known Emma was curious and brave, but the attention made them realize the broader impact of her simple actions. "She doesn't know she's famous," Michael said, watching Emma chase a butterfly across the yard. "She just knows she likes dogs." Laura smiled, realizing that Emma's innocence was precisely what had resonated with so many people. "It's not about recognition," she said softly. "It's about reminding people of trust and courage, the kind only a child can show without thinking twice." National media soon picked up the story. News segments highlighted the unlikely friendship between a 3-year-old girl and a trained police dog, focusing on the innocence and bravery that had captured hearts. Viewers across the country were enchanted, some laughing, others wiping away tears at the pure simplicity of the encounter. Social media trends exploded, inspiring articles about child development, animal behavior, and community policing. Schools, parents, and animal organizations praised the story, using it as an example of how even the smallest interactions could leave lasting impressions. Despite the widespread attention, Emma remained blissfully unaware of her newfound fame. She continued to explore the park on subsequent visits, always holding her stuffed rabbit and occasionally waving at Rex from a distance. To her, it was all a game, a playful adventure in which the dog was simply another friend. Yet for adults, the encounter had become emblematic, a story of courage, empathy, and trust that transcended age, experience, and expectation. By the end of the week, the Thompson family had learned to navigate the whirlwind of attention. They embraced the positive message, using it to highlight child safety, animal empathy, and the beauty of trust. Officer Harris and Rex continued their patrols, now recognized as heroes in the eyes of the public, yet remaining humble in the face of media scrutiny. Emma, as always, remained the heart of the story, a tiny girl whose innocence and courage had created ripples far beyond her understanding. And so, What had begun as a quiet afternoon stroll in Maplewood evolved into a story of national fascination. A 3-year-old girl, a highly trained police dog, and a single act of trust had captivated a nation, inspiring awe, laughter, and reflection. Emma's bravery and Rex's gentleness became symbols of the unexpected magic that can unfold when courage and kindness meet, leaving a legacy that would touch lives for years to come. The day of the courtroom appearance arrived sooner than the Thompsons expected. Though it was a minor hearing focused on child safety oversight, rather than any criminal matter, the family couldn't help but feel a flutter of nerves. Lavra adjusted Emma's yellow dress, while Michael ensured her hair was neatly tied, her golden curls bouncing as she clutched her stuffed rabbit. Emma, blissfully unaware of the weight of the occasion, hummed a cheerful tune, occasionally pausing to peek at her reflection in the polished courthouse windows. The Maplewood Courthouse was an imposing building, its stone facade and tall columns casting shadows on the square below. Inside, the atmosphere was one of quiet formality. Judges in black robes, attorneys shuffling papers, and clerks typing rapidly at their desks. It was the kind of place where small children often felt out of place, intimidated by the hushed tones and the polished wooden benches. But Emma, fearless and curious, surveyed her surroundings with wide-eyed wonder, occasionally tapping her rabbit against her chin in thought. Officer Daniel Harris and Rex were present as well, sitting quietly near the back of the courtroom. Rex's muscular frame was tense yet controlled, ears perked, and eyes scanning the room with intelligence. His presence added a layer of comfort for the Thompsons, and also reminded everyone present that this case involved not just a child, but a trained police K-9, though this was a procedural matter. The unusual circumstances of the prior park encounter had drawn attention from the public, some of whom were curious enough to attend the hearing. As the proceedings began, the judge entered, her expression formal but attentive. Attorneys presented their statements efficiently, outlining the purpose of the hearing, ensuring child safety. Protocols were upheld and confirming that Emma's encounter with Rex had not involved negligence. The room was quiet, save for the soft shuffle of papers and occasional coughs. But then, someone suggested playing the footage of Emma and Rex in the park, a simple measure meant to provide context, yet one that would transform the atmosphere completely. When the video played on the courtroom's large screen, showing Emma giggling as Rex sniffed her hand and wagged his tail, a collective murmur swept through the room. The judge paused, eyes widening in surprise, while spectators leaned forward in fascination. Even seasoned attorneys and clerks found themselves smiling, unable to contain a reaction to the heartwarming display of trust between the tiny girl and the massive K-9. The sight of Emma's fearless smile and Rex's gentle demeanor softened the formal tone of the courtroom instantly. Emma herself watched the video intently, giggling at her own antics as the dog nudged her hand. She didn't understand the legal significance or the attention focused on her actions. To her, it was simply a fun memory being played back. The court audience, however, reacted with laughter, applause, and even a few emotional sighs. It was as if the innocence of a 3-year-old and the loyalty of a trained dog had transcended the courtroom's rigidity, reminding everyone present of the simple joys often overlooked in adult life. Judge Thompson, no relation to Emma's family, leaned back in her chair, clearly charmed. "I've presided over countless hearings," she said, her voice warm, "but rarely have I seen such a remarkable display of bravery and trust. That child's courage and that dog's restraint. It's extraordinary." Lawyers whispered to one another, acknowledging that the footage had humanized the case in ways no argument or document ever could. For once, the legal setting became a stage for a story that touched hearts more than it enforced rules. Witnesses from the police department offered statements next. Officer Harris explained Rex's extensive training and how unusual it was for a K9 to respond to a stranger, especially a toddler, with such calmness. He described the bond that had formed in that brief encounter, emphasizing that Rex's reaction was instinctive rather than trained, and that Emma had demonstrated fearlessness that belied her age. The courtroom listened, captivated by every detail, realizing that what might have been a minor procedure was actually a rare, almost magical event. Neighbors who had witnessed the original encounter were called to provide testimony. Mrs. Caldwell, speaking with a hint of excitement, described watching the massive police dog approach Emma gently and allowing her to pat him without hesitation. "I've seen Rex chase suspects, respond to emergencies," she explained. But watching him with Emma, it was like the world had paused. They understood each other instantly. The courtroom reacted with murmurs of agreement, and even the most stoic clerks seemed momentarily moved by her words. Throughout the hearing, Emma remained a quiet, curious observer. She occasionally waved at Rex or whispered something to her rabbit, oblivious to the emotional ripples she was creating. Her innocence contrasted sharply with the adult attention, highlighting the purity of her bravery. Spectators who had anticipated a formal, perhaps tedious legal proceeding were now fully engaged, captivated by the charm, courage, and unexpected wisdom exhibited by a child who had never uttered more than a few simple words. By the time the hearing concluded, what could have been a mundane procedural matter had transformed into a celebration of empathy, trust, and courage. The judge commended the Thompsons for their attentive parenting, the police for their professionalism, and Emma for her fearless curiosity. Rex, obedient as ever, wagged his tail once in acknowledgement, as if understanding the significance of the day. Attorneys, spectators, and court staff left the room smiling, inspired, and reminded that even in the gravest of places, moments of humanity could shine brightly. Outside the courthouse, news crews waited to capture reactions. Footage of Emma laughing, Rex sitting patiently, and Officer Harris standing proudly beside his K9 spread quickly across television screens and social media feeds. Commentators described the courtroom as having been transformed by innocence and lightened by joy, emphasizing the rarity of a legal proceeding eliciting such emotional responses. Maplewood, and soon the nation, marveled at how a simple encounter between a child and a police dog could resonate so deeply. The Thompson family returned home that evening, reflecting on the day's events. Lavra hugged Emma tightly, marveling at her daughter's ability to inspire joy in even the most formal of settings. Michael, watching Rex settle quietly beside Officer Harris, whispered, "I don't think any of us will forget this day. It's not just about her bravery or the dog's gentleness. It's about the way they reminded everyone what's important: trust, courage, and connection." Emma, smiling and twirling in her yellow dress, had no concept of her role in this emotional resonance, but she had left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed her. As the sun set over Maplewood, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps, the Thompsons realized that Emma's story was far from over. The courtroom moment had captured hearts, inspired conversation, and transformed what began as a minor incident into a story of national fascination. The tale of a fearless little girl and a trained police dog had shown that courage and empathy, even in the smallest forms, could leave a lasting impression. And for everyone involved, that courtroom day would remain unforgettable, a testament to innocence, bravery, and the extraordinary connections that sometimes appear in the most unexpected places. By the following week, Emma Thompson and Rex, the police dog, had become a sensation far beyond Maplewood. Social media feeds were flooded with posts, hashtags, and videos celebrating the unlikely friendship. Hashtag Fearless Emma and hashtag Gentle Rex trended across platforms, with thousands of users commenting, sharing, and expressing awe. Parents marveled at Emma's bravery, Animal lovers praised Rex's discipline and gentleness. And children's stories, inspired by the footage, began appearing online. The story had evolved into more than just an encounter. It was now a symbol of courage, empathy, and innocence that resonated with people across the country. At the Thompson household, the family felt the duality of pride and overwhelm. Lavra sat at the kitchen table, carefully scrolling through emails and notifications, while Michael tried to manage a growing schedule of interviews and requests. "Michael, look at this," Lavra said, holding up a tablet. A children's magazine had featured Emma on its cover, labeling her the bravest 3-year-old in America. "I never imagined this," she murmured, her voice tinged with disbelief and pride. Michael nodded. "She didn't ask for this attention," he said. "But maybe it's a chance to remind people of something important: trust, kindness, and courage in even the smallest of humans." Officer Daniel Harris also noticed the growing wave of admiration. The police department had received countless letters, emails, and calls praising both Rex and Emma. Some were from local residents sharing heartfelt thanks, while others came from individuals across the country inspired by the story. Daniel, a seasoned officer, had faced many crises and emergencies, but he had never seen the impact of a simple, innocent act spread so widely. "It's not just the dog or the child," he said to a colleague. "It's the connection. That's what people are responding to, the purity of it, the trust, the courage." Media outlets requested interviews with the Thompsons, Officer Harris, and even Rex. Local television segments expanded into national coverage, and newspapers ran feature stories, emphasizing the bond between a fearless little girl and a disciplined canine. Each story highlighted the lessons embedded in the encounter: empathy, the ability to trust, and the innocence of a child's perspective. One segment described the scene at the park, emphasizing how a massive, trained police dog had allowed a 3-year-old to approach without fear. Another focused on Emma's laughter, describing it as a sound that melted hearts nationwide. Communities across the United States began celebrating the story in tangible ways. Schools organized special events where children learned about police dogs, animal safety, and empathy. Parents recounted Emma's encounter to their own children as a lesson in courage. Animal shelters posted about the incident, highlighting the importance of understanding and patience when interacting with animals. The story had sparked a cultural moment, one in which a child's innocence and a dog's gentle restraint became a metaphor for connection, compassion, and courage. Even within Maplewood, the impact was profound. Neighbors who had witnessed the initial encounter recounted the story to friends, family, and visitors, emphasizing how Emma's bravery had transformed a simple day in the park into a tale of national fascination. Mrs. Caldwell, the elderly neighbor who had first marveled at the scene, told friends, "It's not just a story about a dog or a child. It's a reminder that courage and kindness exist in the smallest gestures." Her words resonated throughout the neighborhood, creating a sense of communal pride and inspiration. Meanwhile, Emma remained blissfully unaware of her newfound fame. She continued her routines, attending preschool, playing in the yard, and occasionally waving at Rex during his patrols. To her, the world was simple. The dog was a friend, the park was a playground, and her stuffed rabbit was her companion. She did not understand the media attention or the waves of public admiration, but her actions had resonated widely because they were genuine, uncalculated, and full of trust. Officer Harris noted the rare combination of bravery and innocence. In his professional experience, canine encounters with strangers were highly controlled and often stressful. Yet Rex had responded to Emma with instinctive gentleness. "It's almost like he recognized something in her," Harris remarked. Children have a way of breaking down barriers without realizing it. Emma's fearlessness and purity of intent allowed Rex to respond in a way we rarely see. People are responding to that authenticity. His observations became a frequent topic in interviews and media coverage, highlighting the unusual depth of the story. The public fascination also inspired acts of kindness. Donations were made to local animal shelters in honor of Rex, while schools across the country hosted events celebrating bravery and empathy. Children drew pictures, wrote letters, and shared their own stories of fearlessness, pets, and trust. Social media posts encouraged families to spend time outdoors, interact safely with animals, and nurture empathy in their children. What began as a viral moment evolved into a movement, one grounded in innocence, bravery, and the deep emotional resonance of a child's fearless heart. Even Emma's preschool recognized her extraordinary influence. Teachers invited Officer Harris and Rex to visit, using the story as a teaching tool. Children learned about safety around animals, the responsibilities of working Canine South, and the importance of courage and compassion. Emma, as always, enjoyed the attention, but remained focused on simple joys, running in the playground, laughing and hugging her rabbit. Yet through her actions, she was teaching lessons far beyond her years, demonstrating that bravery and empathy could ripple through communities in powerful, unexpected ways. By the end of the week, Maplewood had fully embraced the story. The local library hosted a small exhibit featuring photos of Emma and Rex, capturing the magical moment at the park. Local businesses displayed the story in newsletters, emphasizing community pride. Families spoke of Emma as an example of fearlessness, and Officer Harris noted that Rex had become something of a local hero, his gentle behavior praised by colleagues and citizens alike. Together, the girl and the dog had become symbols of innocence, courage, and the extraordinary impact of small acts of connection. As evening fell, Laura and Michael reflected on the whirlwind of attention. They realized that Emma's simple act of fearlessness had sparked something larger than they could have imagined. "She doesn't even know the attention she's getting," Laura whispered, watching Emma chase a butterfly across the yard. Michael smiled. "And that's what makes it beautiful. She's not doing it for recognition. She's doing it because she's herself. And the world is just captivated by that honesty." The story's reach continued to expand. National talk shows invited the Thompsons for interviews. Newspapers printed feature stories, and online forums discussed the rare interaction between child and dog. Yet for all the fame and admiration, the essence of the story remained unchanged. A fearless little girl, a disciplined police dog, and a single act of trust that reminded the world of courage, compassion, and the power of innocence. Maplewood had witnessed a miracle of sorts, not magic, but something just as rare. The ability of a child's pure heart to touch lives far beyond her understanding. By the end of Part 6, Emma and Rex had become more than a viral story. They were symbols. Emma's bravery and Rex's gentleness inspired adults and children alike, reminding communities of the beauty and simplicity, the courage and innocence, and the extraordinary power of small, genuine acts of trust. The story had grown from a neighborhood encounter into a national phenomenon, captivating hearts and sparking a wave of admiration that showed no sign of slowing down. Weeks had passed since Emma Thompson's encounter with Rex. The police dog first captured the hearts of Maplewood and eventually the nation. While the media frenzy had settled slightly, the story continued to inspire, teaching lessons about trust, bravery, and the innocence of a child unburdened by fear. At the Thompson household, life gradually returned to its gentle rhythms. Yet the family felt a lingering sense of wonder at the unexpected impact of one afternoon in the park. Laura sat in the cozy living room, Emma perched beside her on the couch, playing quietly with her stuffed rabbit. "Do you remember Rex, sweetie?" she asked softly. Emma's golden curls bobbed as she nodded. "Nice dog," she said, her voice clear and calm. Though she didn't fully grasp the magnitude of what had transpired, She retained the memory of gentle fur, warm eyes, and the reassurance she had felt in Rex's presence. Lavra smiled, thinking about how Emma's innocence had transformed not just a single day, but the hearts of countless strangers. Michael joined them, holding a tablet with a slideshow of images capturing Emma's encounters with Rex. The first curious sniff, the tentative pat, the shared laughter. He shook his head in amazement. "It's incredible how people connect with this story," he murmured. "Not because she's famous, but because of what she represents: fearlessness, trust, and kindness." Lara nodded, her eyes glistening. "It's a reminder that children see the world differently. They don't carry doubt or cynicism. And sometimes, that's exactly what the world needs." Officer Daniel Harris visited the Thompsons regularly, bringing Rex along for walks in the neighborhood. He noticed how Emma's interactions with the dog had subtly changed both of them. Rex, once reserved in new situations, now approached children with a slightly softer demeanor, while Emma had developed a quiet confidence and understanding of boundaries with animals. Harris reflected on the profound ways these interactions affected both child and canine. "It's remarkable," he said during one visit. "She teaches him trust, and he teaches her patience and respect. They've both grown in ways most people don't realize." The community of Maplewood also felt the ripples. Schools had organized events inspired by Emma's bravery, teaching children about courage, empathy, and safe interactions with animals. Local businesses displayed photos of Emma and Rex, celebrating the story that had unified the neighborhood. Parents recounted the tale to their children, emphasizing lessons about kindness and trust. Even casual park-goers seemed to view the world differently, noting how a simple act of bravery could resonate far beyond what anyone anticipated. Meanwhile, national attention had not entirely faded. News programs occasionally revisited the story, framing it as an example of human-animal connection and the power of innocence. Articles explored the psychological impact of children interacting with animals, citing Emma's fearlessness and Rex's calm response as extraordinary. Social media continued to feature the story, often accompanied by reflections on childhood courage and empathy. Commenters shared their own experiences of similar moments, creating an ongoing tapestry of stories inspired by one small girl and one gentle dog. The courtroom moment remained vivid in the minds of the Thompsons. Lavra remembered the judge's reaction, the collective gasps and smiles of the courtroom audience, and the way Emma had unconsciously diffused tension with her laughter and simplicity. "It was more than a procedural hearing," Lavra told Michael one evening. "It became a reminder that even the most formal places can be touched by innocence and courage." "And she didn't even know she was doing it." Michael nodded. "That's what makes it remarkable," he said. "She didn't seek approval or fame. She simply acted with fearlessness and kindness." Rex, too, had changed in subtle ways. Officer Harris noted that the dog seemed to recognize Emma instantly, responding to her presence with calm attentiveness rather than the standard alertness reserved for new encounters. The bond between child and canine had become a quiet, unspoken understanding. Harris reflected on the rarity of such a connection. "I've trained dogs for years," he admitted, "but rarely do you see one respond to a child with such immediate trust and gentleness. It's instinct, yes, but also something extraordinary that transcends training." The story also inspired others to act. Animal shelters reported an increase in volunteer applications and adoption inquiries, often citing Emma and Rex as motivation. Families shared stories of teaching children empathy and responsibility, while communities organized events focused on trust and bravery. The impact extended beyond Maplewood, creating a network of individuals and organizations united by the narrative of courage and innocence. Emma's simple act had created waves of compassion and reflection across the country. Even casual observers were affected. Tourists visiting Maplewood often asked to see the park where the encounter had occurred, eager to experience the setting firsthand. Local cafe owners displayed photographs of Emma and Rex, sparking conversation among patrons about the enduring power of small acts. Psychologists and child development experts referenced the incident in talks and articles, emphasizing the importance of nurturing fearlessness, trust, and empathy in children. What had been a single fleeting moment had become a lens through which people examined the value of innocence and courage. At home, the Thompsons reflected privately on the broader lessons. "It's amazing how one afternoon can change so much," Lavra whispered, watching Emma sleep in her bed that evening. Michael nodded, leaning back in his chair. "It's not just about her bravery or Rex's gentleness," he said. "It's about what that moment showed the world, how small acts can inspire big changes. Courage doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet, fearless, and pure." They shared a moment of gratitude, understanding that their daughter had touched lives in ways neither of them could have predicted. Emma's innocence remained the heart of the story. She continued to explore the world with curiosity, approaching people and animals with confidence, joy, and respect. She had no understanding of fame or recognition, yet her actions had sparked national conversations about bravery, empathy, and trust. Her parents watched her grow, marveling at how one simple moment of curiosity and fearlessness had rippled outward, creating inspiration for countless others. And through it all, Rex remained a steadfast presence. The dog's gentle demeanor, combined with his disciplined training, had created the perfect balance for the unique bond they shared. Officer Harris often watched them together in quiet reflection. "It's rare to see a connection like this," he admitted. "It's more than training, more than instinct. It's trust, pure and simple. And it reminds us why we do this work: to protect, to guide, and sometimes to witness something extraordinary." By the end of Part 7, the story of Emma and Rex had evolved into something much larger than either could have imagined. It was a tale of bravery and gentleness, of innocence and instinct, and of the quiet, transformative power of trust. Communities were inspired, children were learning courage, and adults were reminded of the beauty and simplicity. What began as a single afternoon in the park had become a movement, a testament to the profound impact of small, heartfelt actions. The Thompsons knew, as did Officer Harris, that Emma and Rex's story would live on, not just in headlines or social media, but in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed their remarkable connection. It was a story of courage, empathy, and the extraordinary power of innocence that would continue to inspire, long after the initial excitement had faded. Months had passed since Emma Thompson's extraordinary encounter with Rex, the police dog, and yet the story continued to captivate hearts. Maplewood, once a quiet town, had become a symbol of courage, empathy, and trust, qualities that Emma, in her innocence, had shown effortlessly. Life for the Thompsons returned to its gentle routines: school, playtime, walks in the park, but the impact of that single afternoon lingered, touching not just their family, but communities across the nation. Emma remained blissfully unaware of her fame. She chased butterflies in the backyard, played dress-up with her stuffed rabbit, and occasionally waved at Rex during his patrols. To her, the world was simple: friends, family, and gentle dogs. She had no notion that her actions had sparked viral videos, social media campaigns, and news headlines. Yet the lessons she had imparted, fearlessness, trust, and empathy, were being absorbed far and wide, proving that innocence could be more influential than any speech or campaign. Officer Daniel Harris often visited, keeping Rex close at hand. The K-9's behavior had subtly changed. He now approached children with patience and gentle restraint, reflecting the bond he had formed with Emma. Harris marveled at the transformation, realizing that while he had trained Rex for years, it was this one unique connection that revealed the dog's extraordinary instincts. Emma showed him trust. Harris said one afternoon, watching the pair interact in the park. And he returned it. That's something you can't teach. That's something rare. The story had continued to spread far beyond Maplewood. National media outlets revisited the tale, often framing it as a testament to the unexpected power of innocence. Newspapers published feature articles detailing the bond between Emma and Rex. Psychologists highlighted the significance of children's fearlessness. And parenting forums praised the story as a lesson in bravery and empathy. Videos were compiled into short documentaries, emphasizing the profound impact that one small act could have on a community and a nation. Schools and organizations used the story as an educational tool. Children learned about responsibility, compassion for animals, and courage in the face of uncertainty. Teachers encouraged students to engage in acts of kindness, using Emma's example to illustrate how fearlessness and empathy could inspire others. Even children who had never seen the original encounter understood the message. Bravery and trust did not require grand gestures. They could begin with a smile, a gentle touch, and an open heart. Maplewood itself became a destination for visitors hoping to witness the park where Emma and Rex had first met. Locals embraced the attention, sharing stories of the day and explaining the lasting significance of the encounter. The town's library hosted a small exhibit featuring photographs, illustrations by local children, and a video compilation of Emma's fearless interaction with Rex. Families toured the exhibit, reflecting on how a child's innocence could create ripples of joy, empathy, and courage throughout a community. Lavra and Michael reflected on their daughter's journey, marveling at the unexpected influence of one simple act. She doesn't even know the lessons she's teaching, Lavra said softly, watching Emma play with her rabbit. Michael nodded. That's the beauty of it. She's not performing for anyone. She's just being herself, and the world is learning from her purity and courage. They realized that their role was not to guide the fame, but to nurture the innocence and empathy that had sparked it. Rex, as always, remained a steady presence. He and Emma shared moments of quiet understanding. She would giggle, he would nudge her hand, and a silent bond passed between them. Officer Harris observed the interactions, noting that the K-9's instinctive gentleness had deepened, and that his connection with Emma had left an imprint on the dog's behavior with other children. He's learned trust from her, Harris said, and in return, he's teaching her patience, respect, and calm confidence. It's a reciprocal relationship that continues to inspire everyone who sees it. The media occasionally returned, updating the public on the enduring story. Social media posts highlighted Emma's growing curiosity, Rex's continued heroism, and the ways in which Maplewood had embraced the narrative. Families across the country shared letters and artwork inspired by the encounter. Parents recounted to children how a 3-year-old girl had fearlessly approached a massive police dog, and how that tiny act of courage had captured the hearts of an entire nation. The story's impact was tangible. Children were more confident, communities were more empathetic, and adults were reminded of the power of trust and kindness. Even small gestures inspired by Emma and Rex became symbols of hope. Animal shelters reported increased adoptions and volunteer involvement. Schools organized Courage and Kindness Days, emphasizing empathy and bravery in everyday actions. Local businesses displayed photographs and videos as reminders that courage and innocence were worth celebrating. Across the country, people cited Emma's example when discussing trust, fearlessness, and compassion, qualities often overlooked in the adult world. At home, the Thompsons reflected on what the story had taught them. It's amazing how one afternoon can change so much, Lavra whispered one evening as Emma slept peacefully. Michael nodded, thinking of the courtroom reactions, the viral videos, and the widespread admiration. It's not just about recognition, he said. It's about the ripple effect of courage and kindness. Emma taught us in the world that even the smallest hearts can create big impacts. They smiled, realizing that the real legacy of that day was not in fame or media attention, but in the countless lives touched by a child's fearless innocence and a dog's gentle heart. Rex, too, seemed aware of his unique role. He continued to accompany Officer Harris on patrols, calm, disciplined, and occasionally offering a nudge or a gentle glance toward Emma when she was near. The dog's presence reminded the community that courage and trust could manifest in unexpected ways. His actions, coupled with Emma's bravery, had created a bond that transcended language, culture, and age, a symbol of pure connection between human and animal. By the end of the year, Maplewood had fully embraced the story as part of its identity. Emma's encounter with Rex was more than a viral video. It was a legacy. Children grew up hearing about the fearless little girl and the gentle police dog, learning lessons about courage, empathy, and the transformative power of trust. Teachers and parents referenced the story to encourage bravery, compassion, and confidence. Communities used it as a reminder that inspiration often comes from the smallest, simplest moments, and that even fleeting encounters can leave a permanent mark on the world. In the quiet evenings, as the sun set over the town, Emma played in her yard with a rabbit, while Rex watched nearby, ever patient and calm. Lavra and Michael observed silently, hearts full of pride and gratitude. They understood that their daughter's story had become something larger than themselves, a story of hope, inspiration, and human-animal connection that would continue to resonate long after the headlines faded. And so, the tale of Emma and Rex became timeless. A 3-year-old girl who fearlessly approached a massive police dog, and a canine whose gentle restraint reflected intelligence and trust, had captured the hearts of a nation. Their encounter was more than a fleeting moment. It was a testament to courage, empathy, and the enduring impact of innocence. From Maplewood to every corner where the story spread, people remembered that sometimes the simplest acts, a hand extended, a smile shared, a moment of fearless trust, can leave the deepest, most lasting impressions. The story concluded not with fanfare, but with a quiet, enduring lesson. Bravery comes in many forms. Courage can be gentle, and innocence unburdened by fear has the power to inspire the world. Emma and Rex had reminded everyone of what truly matters: connection, compassion, and the extraordinary beauty found in everyday moments. And in that reminder, the legacy of a fearless little girl and her gentle police dog would live on forever.